Why do people convert to Islam? Because a new study says more and more white British people are doing so, particularly women. The research by Swansea University estimates there could now be as many as 100,000 converts in the UK. So why do people convert to Islam? What motivates such a change in belief, lifestyle, even the way they dress sometimes? The number to call, 0500 909 693. You can text as well, of course, 85058. Let's talk to Lauren Booth. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning.
You converted 12 weeks ago, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
How long did you think about it and investigate it before you made the decision?
Well, each person's journey to Islam is different. My journey really consisted of spending a good deal of time working in the Middle East and getting to know families in Palestine. And so mine was very much a sort of cultural, familial, practical introduction to Islam rather than the scholarly route.
What about the theology?
What about the theology? Well, interestingly, there's a thing called dawah in Islam, which is invitation, because Islam isn't an evangelical religion as such, so you don't go and kind of forcefully change people's minds, but that people can talk to you about the teachings of the Quran. So actually,
just to be sensitive, some people might argue that evangelizing is false, but there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Well. Yeah. We can discuss that another time. But basically, you learn about the Quran when people talk about it. Then what's interesting about Muslims is you're expected to know the book back to front and front to back, and be able to sort of quote practical examples of how you should live your life. So, in fact, a lot of my learning came from taxi drivers in North London, who would, a lot of them from Somalia and Eritrea, who, if I would get in the cab and say, I'm having a bit of trouble with my kids today, and they'd say, well, and they'd give me this piece of learning that seemed to be really good advice.
Well, did it differ hugely from things you already knew, from the normal Judeo-Christian upbringing that you had had?
Well, you say
if you had one.
Judeo-Christian upbringing. Who has one of those in our society? That's what I'd like to ask your listeners. I was born and bred in London. I can't really say that I grew up in a Judeo-Christian society. I'd say I grew up in a society where ethics and morals are very much things that are put on a back burner, and that consumerism and that creating ourselves as lords of the universe has really replaced an ethical foundation. So, who has that sort of upbringing?
I just wonder why Islam, though, in your case, because, the arguments against consumerism, or the warnings against consumerism, the warnings against promiscuity, against some aspects of modern life, all of the main religions espouse, don't they?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Islam is it's very much a code for living. So, whereas there are, of course, the Torah and the Old Testament are all included in the Quran because it's the same God. What many people don't realize is that Judaism, Christianity are a stepping point to Islam. So these same laws apply actually, but what you've been given in the Quran is sort of practical ways of making them work in your daily life. What
about from your personal point of view, and whether or not it was something you could be comfortable with, certain Islamic societies' tolerance or lack of it towards women's rights, for example, gay rights?
I think what's interesting here is I got a good piece of advice, when I converted from a sheikh, and he said, Lauren, whatever you do, please don't be put off Islam by Muslims. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we can all make mistakes with the learning that we're given.
So do you, as a recent convert to Islam, say that that those Muslims who are against homosexuality, those Muslims who might have different views to you on the freedoms of women, that they are wrong and Islam is right?
I think you've already touched on something very important there, which is this sort of false idea that Islam in any way disrespects women. Why is it in the UK right now that the majority of those 100,000 converts are actually educated women? Now, we're not stupid people. We've gone through college and university. We've excelled in our careers. And what we find is that Islam is the one religion that really elevates educated motherhood above all other social positions.
Well, let me bring in Steve here, if I may, Lauren. He's keen to speak to you. Morning, Steve.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for calling, Steve.
You're welcome.
I know you had a question related to what Lauren has just been talking about, so why don't you address it to her?
Yeah, I wonder what Lauren feels about the punishment for leaving Islam, and what she feels as she's quite well known as an activist for women's rights, which I can't believe that she's saying that it supports women's rights when Islam really doesn't, and also against homosexuals as well.
I think, hi Steve, listen, I think you've raised some good questions there, brother. I think what we need to talk about, though, is your own basis for saying that Islam doesn't respect women's rights, because I will quote to you now from the Prophet, peace be upon him, who was asked...
Well, let's put it right. It's a prophet to Muslims, but not a prophet to people who are not Islamic.
Okay, fine. So the Muslim prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was asked by a young boy, who do I respect in my household? And he said, your mother. And then he said, who do I respect in my household? After my mother, he said, your mother. And he said the third time, your mother. And he said, after that, your father. Now, these are all basic tenets of Islam, which is that an the Muslim prophet Muhammad, if that's how you'd like to talk of him, was married to a 41-year-old businesswoman. That was his wife.
Yes,
so,
he was also married to a 6-year-old girl and consummated the marriage when he was 9.
No.
That's fact, I'm afraid.
I'm sorry. A lot of these things are really, really just not related to the facts of Islam, I'm afraid. Listen,
they're not related to your prophet then, surely.
Steve, what I'd like to tell you, you did ask me a question, which is a really, really important one, and you're quite correct in asking it, is why would someone like me join Islam if it was against women? And I'm here to tell you that educated women are converting because we are elevated in Islam to a place that we actually don't have in our society. As a working woman in a non-Islamic society, you're exhausted.
You're sure you can't be serious, Lauren?
I'm totally
Well, hang on a
serious.
second, Steve. Let me just get you to elaborate a bit, if you would, Lauren, on how you viewed, because I think we're getting to the nub of, or an element of your personal choice. Working women in non-Islamic society are what, in your view?
Are shattered. We're tired. We're depressed. Often, these are all studies that are week in, week out.
But have you experienced those things? Feeling shattered, feeling depressed?
Well, not so much the depression, but certainly the feeling that we're pulled in too many directions as a working mother, that we are not esteemed or really respected, that as a working mother in your 40s, that you're expected to be a sexual
that's the real
being
nub of
in
the problem,
public.
isn't it, Lauren?
Sorry, Steve, I didn't talk over you. It's really not respectful.
Right.
Hang on, Steve. Go on, Lauren.
Whereas in Islam, you are, revered in your social circle. You're respected. The single act of being a mother is so highly respected that it feels great to be a mother. And I really wish that for all women.
You're still a mother, obviously. Do you still work?
Of course I do.
Why aren't you? Are you shattered?
Do you know what? I feel less tired now, simply because I'm supported by a whole community who tells me day in, day out, as a mother, that the job I'm doing is great.
Well, obviously...
Can I just ask you another question,
Well, hang
Lauren?
on, Steve. Just before you do, I promise I'll come back to you, Steve.
Yes, okay.
One of the things... It's very interesting what you said, Lauren, about, the way you felt before you converted to Islam. It'd be really interesting to hear from some, working mothers in their 40s, the kind of person you described there, who haven't converted to Islam, have no plans, are living the Western British life, and see whether their experience is the same as yours, because I wonder whether you're making a generalisation about something that you and your friends felt when lots of people perhaps don't. Steve, what was the point?
I wasn't making a generalisation. This is based on studies carried out by various foundations.
Well, let's see who calls in and see whether that's their experience as well. Steve,
I think
go
it's
on, Steve.
Very illuminating, Lauren. What do you feel about the punishment for leaving Islam?
I don't know anybody who's wanted to leave Islam, and I think, no, seriously, because it's such a lovely way of life.
Oh, right.
You can laugh in a really, in a really sceptical way, and
I'm not sceptical, Lauren. I'm being objective.
okay, you can laugh in an objective way, brother, but what you can't do is dismiss what I'm saying on a personal level, which is it's a really happy way of life. It provides you with a secure basis for bringing up children, for friendship, for being a better human being in your community. Can I just put a point to you then, Lauren, without
intervening in your talking too much?
Go on, Steve.
I would like to say that if you feel that women are not repressed in Islam, do you feel that is in the wider context around the rest of the world? Because this moderacy, the voice of moderacy that you appear to be espousing today, is not the one which is seen in the wider Muslim world, is it?
So I think, Steve, you again, you touched on something here that has some accuracy in it, which is the difference between Islam and the way it can be practiced by people. People are imperfect. Islam is a perfect religion. So we mustn't confuse some of what's done in its name with its teachings. I think that's been done an awful lot.
Well, listen, thank you to both of you. Lauren Booth, many thanks for sharing your experience, because I know it's a recent one, so thank you for talking to us. And Steve in Atherstone and Warwickshire.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Great to hear from you, Steve. Patrick in Belfast is on the line. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, good morning. Hello.
Hello there, and hello to Simon in Warwick. Now, Patrick, you're an interesting case. You became a Muslim 3 weeks before 9/11, so I'm guessing that early on in your time as a Muslim, you had a lot of reaction around you from people.
Well, yes, indeed. I came from an Irish Catholic background, and, within 3 weeks, I was given a book on the life of the Prophet, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, a book by Martin Lings. And I read that book, and I was on holiday, and I thought, you know, Islam, it's not just a religion, it's a way of life, it's a system of governance that can help you become a better person and help society. So I thought, you know, this is brilliant. So I went along to the mosque, and the most amazing thing happened. You know, I took Shahada, where I testified that there's the oneness of God, there's only one God, and Muhammad is his slave and messenger. And then, alhamdulillah, all praises for God, because, you know, it was the most beautiful, enlightening experience. You know, and sadly, Lauren's brother-in-law, you know, started a crusade just 3 weeks later, you know, that Islam became public enemy number one. You know, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, he would, if he were speaking now, he'd argue with that. He made very clear that this was not a war on Islam, didn't he, at the time?
No, but obviously, you know, he's very well versed at saying, you know, Islam, a perversion of Islam, and he knows so much about it, but he doesn't really know as much as his lovely sister-in-law.
Well, do you believe that? Well, she seemed to think that a lot of the practice was a perversion of Islam. When she was in conversation with Steve a moment ago, what do you believe about some of the practice carried out in the name of Islam that you see? Do you accept it all?
Well, I mean, to allow me the context to answer that in full, I'm not prepared, or I'm not able to do so in just a few short seconds, sadly. But the thing I'd like to say is, you know, that how Islam is perceived. The first thing that the Prophet Muhammad was said to him was to read, and in the first, and that was when he was visited with the angel Gabriel, was the first revelation he was given, was to read in the name of your Lord who created you. And in the start of the Quran it says, in this book there is no doubt, and that is a challenge for every person to go and check for themselves that you know, in this book that there's many miracles of the Quran. It explains that this is before medical scientists could even begin to find out about the birth of a woman. That the pregnancy is in 3 stages, and he also spoke about, you know, the marvelous. The Quran is a miracle in itself, and what it is given for mankind is for guidance for mankind. Criterion is there's no compulsion in it. It's just a guidance and
an invitation is what an invitation. Yeah. Let me just stop you for a second, Patrick, because, you know, people can only take so much in one sort of mouthful. You talked there about read, and Lauren talked about educated mothers being the primary source of Islam, and yet, you know, that bit has been completely bypassed in many Islamic societies. Think of the Taliban; they refuse to educate girls; they make women hide away at home and not go out on their own. I mean, that doesn't seem to support read, and educate mothers, does it?
No. Well, sadly, you know, you give the example of the Taliban. I would give the example of the Saudi Arabian government, who's perceived as a Muslim country, which is not anything but, except, well, the leaders certainly are anything but, because they are backrolled and funded by the hegemony of America and Britain to get the black gold out there. Sadly, all these corrupt Muslim leaders are perverting Islam. You know, they hold on to this most strict Sharia law that has nothing to do with Islam.
Where is it?
Hold on,
Patrick, where is it? Let me just ask you, where do you believe, you've been studying it now for 10 years or so, where do you believe its best practice is then? If it's not the Taliban, if it's not Saudi Arabia, where is it?
Well, Tony Blair said a perversion of Islam. The perversion of Islam is the leaders in these countries, which Osama bin Laden stated in 1995 is the problem. That's the problem in the world that is happening just now, is that these corrupt leaders oppress their own people.
So Osama bin Laden is the best practice, is he?
So, no, I'm not saying that. I'm suggesting to you that when John Milton in 1642 says, when you put out the people's eyes, you reproach them of their blindness. And so what I'm suggesting to you is that who is a terrorist? Is it the Saudi government who boils people alive just because they say what you're doing to your people and what you're doing to the planet is in fact unjust and unwrong? So what is a proper Muslim country? Well, I would suggest to you there is no proper system of Islamic governments in the world today. And we have to look back, to get back to the source and to the root, and there is only one God, and his last messenger was there as a guide. So all the sects and tribes of Sunni, Shia, there is only one God and there is only one prophet, and the message he gave was for one of mankind to unite. Okay. Unite together as one, not to have.
Do you think, Patrick, it's more difficult or more interesting for a woman to convert to Islam in this day and age than for a man? Do you think it's a bigger challenge?
The invite is there for all mankind. It's an invitation to check it out for yourself and see the benefit that will bring to you, your family and your life and those around you. And that is all the challenge that I put out to everybody listening. There is no compulsion, and you're not going to be forced to convert to a sword. Just look for yourself, and the reason why people are converting is because it's an open religion. People can see it and they can make a judgment for themselves, and when they do that, be they man, woman, or whoever, they walk in and they do it with their own volition.
Okay,
and to suggest anything otherwise is an absolute outrage and disgrace.
All right, Patrick, lots more people waiting to talk, but thank you for your call. Patrick in Belfast. We'll talk to Simon in Warwick in just a second, but Cantalal in Birmingham might have some interesting observations in the light of Patrick's conversation there. Hi, Cantalal.
Hi there.
You don't think people should convert?
No, because I've lived with this Muslim community in Birmingham for 44 years. And I know the first generation, the second generation, and their kids now. Now, in 1970s and 80s, they converted blacks left, right, and center. Then they started converting the Muslims, the converts into the university campus. The very simple thing I'm going to say is they go and pray 5 times a day, and they are the people who do a dirty deeds, most of it, than any other people in the world.
What, the people praying 5 times a day?
Yeah, their Islam teaches that they have to go to pray for 5 times in a day. Their teaching is whatever it is, but these are the people who commit more crimes than anybody else in the world, the Muslims. It gives you proof about the Middle East countries. Yeah.
Do you have a religion that you practice, Cantalal?
I practice a Hindu religion, but I respect all the religion apart from the Muslim, because their teaching is the one which makes you think that this religion is imposed on a lot of people. And as I said, that in 1970s and 80s, they converted a lot of black youths. And then
what's wrong with that?
Because most of the black youths in those days, because they used to come in the shop and they used to steal for the drugs. And these are the people who are converted, and I've seen most of the mosques in the area.
Cantalal, I need to stop you. You seem to be, equating, some of your personal experience with a much wider example of a community, and that's not possible to do, Cantalal.
Or churches to be built in Middle East countries. The recent incident is in Egypt. Why don't they let every other religion live peacefully rather than imposing their own on everybody else?
Okay, Cantalal, thank you for your time. That's Cantalal in Birmingham. Simon in Warwick, good morning.
Hello, how are you doing?
So whether it's Islam converts or any convert, where do you stand on this?
Well, they're all Abrahamic religions, so at the end of the day, they're all really singing from the same hymn sheet, and to be sitting there arguing about who's going to ban what is really just a little bit ridiculous. I'd suggest, especially to Patrick, that instead of reading some of this stuff, he reads some history and starts to look into the history of mankind and the development of spirituality, because 45,000 years BC is when about the first time Homo sapiens sapien began to express a spiritual reality to their lives by painting the spirits of bulls and other animals onto the walls of caves.
Because we know it's a kind of hunger in people, don't we?
Well, there is, yeah, and I think that began to express itself somewhere around 45,000 years ago. So let's get this into context. I mean, organised religion was invented as a means of control by the kings of the city-states that developed after the hunter-gatherer society that was probably there around 7,000 or 8,000 BC.
Well, we don't know that for sure. There are many people who believe of any of the monotheistic religions who believe in revelation, a moment when we knew more than we used to. What you're saying with certainty isn't true for lots of people.
Well, they should possibly study some of the archaeological evidence and some of the geological evidence that would suggest that, I think every serious historian and every realistic person has to accept that the construct of Abrahamic religion and all of the other religions that come out of it is purely that, a construct. Okay. I mean, Christianity in the first place was developed by Constantine.
Well, Simon, let me just bring you back, because we've got two converts to Islam waiting to talk to us, so I'll have to cut you short if I may. But just why do you think people do convert to Islam in this instance is the question we're asking. What is it, do you think, that they're looking for?
Well, I think it's quite possibly that lack of spirituality. I would suggest, because I'm only going to get one more word in here now, I would suggest they look into Buddhism, because if you really want to develop a spiritual relationship with the cosmos, then you're going to do that through Buddhism. It's a personal religion. I wish I could transcendentally meditate. I wish I could actually meditate.
Say it, Simon.
I'm not a good enough person, but I want to. And if I was going to, I am a theological or I'm basically a Buddhist, and I would like everybody to sort of look into that, because it's a personal religion, and then you have a proper relationship with the cosmos, and stop wasting time on organising and creating division.
Okay, well, listen, Simon, we'll leave it there, and best of luck with the transcendental meditation as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tobias in Chiswick in Greater London, good morning.
Good morning to you.
You converted in 91, so 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Why did you convert to Islam?
See, the problem with this question is really it's one of those hindsight sort of questions. I mean, I could now say there are so many things that I discovered, but at the time I read the meaning of the Quran in English, and it felt like the right thing to do. That's a simple thing. So I didn't have any specific whys, and I wasn't searching for anything. I just used to like reading books.
Yeah, and you were just drawn to it once you did.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm.
And how has it improved your life, Tobias, if it has?
100% in all spheres, really. And actually, I wanted to just address a couple of points, if I may. Mm-hmm. One is that if the image of Islam that I do see, depicted in the media, were truly Islam, I can honestly tell you I wouldn't be a Muslim today. And I think we need to look at the figures of people converting, especially people in this country, and we need to understand that they're obviously not converting to the depiction in the media. Nobody in their right mind would be drawn to something that is, especially women, that is barbaric, that is oppressive towards women, that is intolerant, especially being born and raised in this country.
But we know that some people are converting to that, don't we? To that version of it, whatever you think of that version of it, we know that there are.
I would say that if there are the people who are doing this would be in a small minority, and I certainly, as the statistics show, the number of people, should I say, converting are women, then clearly, they're not converting because I want to be oppressed and I want to be abused. I think I definitely believe that there is enough argument for us to re-examine what is depicted as being Islam. That's my point. Do you understand me?
I do.
That there's clearly, we can't say, all of these people converting want to be nutters and want to be abused and want to be intolerant. There clearly has to be. Well, there must be something more to it than that. And the other point I wish to make was, you questioned one of your callers regarding which country can we look to for a depiction of Islam. It wasn't so much.
No, it wasn't which country. It was where is the good practice? Tell me what good Islamic practice looks like.
Well, unfortunately, this is an ideological thing, but every attempt for people to actually establish it and get it going has been thwarted. And the best example I can give is in the early 90s when I converted in Algeria, the Muslims there went through the democratic process, free and fair. 88% of the country voted to have an Islamic government.
But what about closer to...
Can I just finish my point,
hang on,
please?
this is a conversation. But what about closer to home, Tobias, in your surroundings?
Can I just finish this point first? Because it's something we forget. We talk about in Tiananmen Square and a few people wanting democracy there and in Burma, but we have an example where 88% of the people in the country went through the democratic process, voted, went through the ballots, free and fair elections. Those elections, which nobody talks about anymore, were overruled by the army. And still to this day, the International Monetary Fund continue to support, and we all pretend like it never happened. So there's an example where Muslims wanted Islam, went through the democratic process for Islam, free and fair elections, they were crushed, and they didn't have an opportunity. Yeah?
Tobias, thank you for your
welcome.
call. We'll have to leave that question I asked you because we've run out of time, but many thanks. Tobias in Chiswick. Why do people convert to Islam? Women in particular appear to be making the decision, in the UK that is. A new study says more and more white British people are converting to Islam, particularly women. The research by Swansea University estimates there could now be as many as 100,000 converts in the UK. I'll explain in a little bit how they came to that conclusion, because it wasn't that big a research group that they looked into. But Jane definitely represents a woman who has converted to Islam. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning.
You're 22 now, is that right?
Yes.
So you did this in your late teens?
I did.
Tell us all about it. Tell us what happened.
Well, basically, I've been raised up in a Roman Catholic family. I've had my Holy Communions and was thought to be a practicing Christian at the time. And when I was throughout my life, basically, somehow I managed to think that Jesus was a prophet, not sort of God or Son of God. But at the same time, sort of within church, it wasn't made clear that Jesus is God or Son of God. And so I didn't even think otherwise.
How was it not made clear? I mean, I come from a similar tradition to you. How was it not made clear to you that at least, whether you believe it or not is secondary, but that Jesus is presented time and time again as divine?
Well, in the church that I went to, perhaps it was different. It was Roman Catholic, but it never sort of brought out a clear message of, we are worshipping Jesus as God. Like, to me, perhaps maybe in my youth, maybe I didn't sort of quite understand everything that the priest was saying at the time, and it all sounded really confusing, and I never really grasped the concept of the Trinity, and I think I was mainly following the way of Christianity because I saw my parents were happy with it.
It was more cultural.
Yeah, and I saw they were happy, and whatever makes my parents happy, well, it would make me happy, hopefully, as well.
And I suppose for most of us, whether we believe it or not, the concept of a God, an all-seeing creator, is perhaps easier, not easy, but easier to establish in our minds and hearts than, say, God made flesh, which is the Christ story, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that what you struggled with?
Well, most definitely.
So what did Islam offer then?
Well, the thing is that I found out then 4 years ago about sort of this concept of Christianity, truly with the Trinity. At the same time, I also found out about Islam, believing in all of the prophets from Adam all the way through, Abraham, Moses, and believing that Jesus was a prophet, not anything divine. And they obviously also believed in a prophet after, the final prophet, Muhammad.
So was it the more human nature of Muhammad that was more easy to grasp in a sense for you?
Well, in Islam, Jesus, peace be upon him, he's still only sort of just a man within Islam. And I think that probably opened the doors towards researching into Islam.
Jane, sorry to interrupt you, can I just ask you to pull away from the microphone a tiny bit, because it's quite poppy. Thank you, thanks.
Fine.
Carry on.
Okay.
Yes, sorry to interrupt you.
And I think that's basically what opened the doors to Islam for me. But and so what I did from then onwards, even though when I talked to my parents about the concept of Islam, they showed a great disgust basically for the religion, and they said that basically if I ever thought about converting to it, then they would instantly basically disown me.
Were they able to say why they felt that? Because clearly you've gone on to do it anyway.
Well, yeah, they gave reasons, as you could typically see today. People say women are oppressed in Islam, or they get beaten, and it's terrorist. It's a cult religion. It's not a true religion.
But it's certainly true that women are oppressed in some Islamic countries, isn't it?
Yes, but that doesn't mean that it's because of the religion. And this is what I find. Like, I'm really grateful that when I was looking into Islam, I didn't meet the Muslims before I met Islam, because the Muslims today in general, if you look at them, there's so few good examples, and it's sad because religion in essence should be a guidance in the sense that it's perfect, but people weren't created perfect. And
Jane, I'm keen for you to stay, because you have made the change, the conversion.
Yes.
You are a young white British woman who's made that change, so I do want you to stay on and converse with a few people who are waiting to talk as well.
That's
Tarek in Mill Hill, good morning.
Morning to you, Sheila, and morning to everybody else. How are you?
Very well, thank you for calling, Tarek. It's interesting what Jane was just saying there, that she feels that there aren't many good examples of Islamic practice from Muslims. You presumably would disagree with that.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, you wouldn't? Sorry.
No, what I actually wanted to say was I would like to give credit where it's due. First of all, one of the reasons why so many non-Muslims revert to Islam in the UK is because of the stable environment within the UK, whereby people are able to search for the truth.
But do you believe there is good Muslim practice among Muslims in the UK?
Yes, because otherwise the reverse would not have come to Islam, because they would see the conduct of good Muslims. Now, in essence, a good one of the prophetic Muhammad traditions is that you will know a good person, and that is when you are with him, you spend time with him, you come away as though you're feeling as though you are smelling musk, and you will know a bad person. You will know that they're a bad person because it's as though you are, you come away from the sparks of an ironmonger. Now, the issue is that there are good Muslims within the UK, and they are able to pass on the traditions of Islam to other people, and they think, well, if he's a good person, why can't I be like him?
As an example, using it as an example. And Jane, yes. I wonder, after 4 years now, you came to, from what you've told me, you came to Islam less through the example of other Muslims, but more through the reading and the investigation of the faith itself. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, definitely.
What about 4 years on? You must have engaged now with lots of Muslims.
Yeah, and well, to be truth, I was a bit afraid of meeting Muslims, to be honest, for the first time, but I found it very relieving when I actually met them. They were totally different to what I thought it would be. You think of this typical stereotype or whatnot, but when I actually met some girls and everything, and also some guys, I was surprised about how, for instance, non-judgmental they were, and how sort of at peace they were, and how I really honestly felt like surrounded by good people.
And what have you, in those 4 years, what have you received, do you think? What have you got from being a convert to Islam?
I most definitely, for the first time, have really been able to receive an inner peace and an acceptance of sort of the simplicity of life in itself. And I have a guidance now, but the Quran is, like, as mentioned before, it is a guidance and how to act in all ways of life, from even business to sort of attitudes and conduct to how to treat your child and raise them. And just having that guidance has really helped me grow as a person and given me a stability of a way of how to act and way of how to live my life, and just knowing that hopefully, like, there's, in the hereafter, and knowing how to build up towards it.
Well, it would be great if you could stay till 10, Jane. But just before we get the travel news from Louise, can I just ask you quickly how are relations between you and your parents now, given that they were so vehemently against it 4 years ago?
For the majority of the time, for probably about 2.5 to 3 years, I can honestly say I've not been in so much mental detriment because of my parents, and I'm so grateful that I actually got through my exams. It's taken them a very long time to be able to treat me like a human being again, because they were convinced that I was brainwashed and from a cult and everything, and they felt sorry for their daughter. But hopefully now from 4 years, they're talking to me more like a human being in a kind way.
But do you understand their shock?
I completely understand their shock, and like for them it's more of a personal thing, in the sense that in the culture, if people were to find out about me being Muslim in my family, our family would be exiled from the community. And so I don't want any harm to come to them, and I'm not supposed to be a burden upon them at all with Islam, because in the Quran itself it says that religion is not it's not compulsory. And so it's not for me to be out there and tell people about it, to
what
force them,
do,
whatever. Exactly.
Good morning to Stephen in Dorchester. Hi, Stephen.
How are you?
Hello, very well.
Happy New Year, by the way.
And you, Happy New Year. Thanks for calling. And Tutu is waiting to talk to us. Tutu's in Reading. Hi, Tutu.
Oh, hi.
And
good morning.
Good morning to you. And we have Shaz from Oldham as well, and Mohammed in Gateshead. Thanks to all of you for calling in. Stephen, what was the point you wanted to make, based on what you've been hearing this morning?
It was just picking up on a few points that some of these people have been mentioning about how converting to Islam is sort of as a guidance to how to bring up children and things like that. And I was just wondering, why is it they can't be a good parent without the religion? Why do they have to convert to, not necessarily Islam in general, but any religion at all? Why do they have to? It seems to me that most people don't have any faith in themselves. They have to turn to religion for faith.
But don't we all take guidance from all kinds of areas in life, and that becomes our faith in ourselves?
Yeah, normally it's sort of around family and the surroundings we're brought up in. That's what usually guides us in our lives. That's sort of what guided me in my life.
Was there a faith at the heart of your family?
No, there's never. Not in my family. I was sort of brought up in Northern Ireland, but I wasn't really into the faith thing. I was a bit. What
about your parents? I mean, did you have a broadly Christian upbringing? Is my question?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I have never been a religious person. I've never believed in the concept of religion, to be honest.
And your parents avoided it as well, did they?
To be honest, I've never really sort of got on with my parents that well, so I'm not really sure how they took it all. But no, I just think it's a bit strange that people don't have enough faith in themselves to be a good parent, that they have to turn to a religion for it.
And Tutu, your husband converted to Islam, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a born Catholic, and he became Muslim a few years just after we got married, and he's been Muslim since. And he was just interested in knowing different type of religion.
And did you have a faith at the time you married him?
No, I'm just a normal person. Yeah.
Well, some people of faith might say they're normal.
Yeah, but he was studying different religion, and he just become interested in Islam, and he's been Muslim since.
And he became interested after reading the Quran, did he?
Yeah, read the Quran and different other books, Islamic books. And he just become Muslim. He went to the mosque and read Shahada, and since then he's been a Muslim. And he's such a good Muslim. But he's just like, one of your callers said, Muslims are not giving, good example, which is true. But every society you have good and bad. It's not just Muslims.
And have you been able to live with his decision?
Yeah, we just live normal, happy life together.
Any pressure from you, from other Muslims in his circle to convert?
No. I've never. Muslims don't go around, knocking at people's doors, become Muslim, or sending, spreading leaflets. I've never come across that. I've always get the Christians here, like the Jehovah's Witness, knocking at my door. Do you want to become Christian? No. But I just like to think my own way and do things my own way, and which he's happy about. And he's such a good husband.
Well, clearly not a man to oppress a woman, by the sounds
of
it.
No, he's such a very gentle man.
Well, thank you for calling.
I would be the one who would oppress him, but he would never oppress me. No, he's such a gentleman.
A little dose of female oppression goes a long way. Thank you.
All right, then.
Thank you, Tutu in Reading, and thanks to Stephen in Dorchester as well. Shaz from Oldham is on the line. Hi, Shaz.
Hello, good morning.
Well, why do you believe that people are converting to Islam when they do?
Well, I'm going to speak from my personal experience. I've just experienced a Hajj in 2010, back in November, and that for me was absolutely phenomenal.
Explain to people what that is. Explain the significance of that.
Well, for every Muslim, they must perform Hajj. It's part of being a Muslim, and basically you have to do that once in your lifetime. And I was lucky enough to go this year to perform the Hajj, and it's basically Muslims from all around the world, literally millions. I think this year is 3 million Muslims descended to Mecca and basically performed the Hajj. And my experience is that there was literally every colour creed there, from Americans that a white rapper, Chinese people, black people, and it didn't matter what colour you was. We were all there for one reason, to praise God, and that's it. It was just Islam is colourless. It doesn't matter what colour you are. It doesn't matter whether you're a billionaire or a millionaire or a pauper. Everybody's equal. That's what Islam is. That's what true Islam is. Unfortunately, as people keep referring back, we people are not good examples of it. But if you go in the communities and that, don't be afraid. Talk to people. We're not afraid to ask questions.
To answer questions. Yeah. Mohammed in Gateshead, is that your experience as well?
Hi there, yeah.
Hi, Mohammed, yeah.
Well, if I may come in, my personal experience was that I didn't actually agree with religion to start with, because my parents actually come from Iran, where Islam is supposed to be sort of practiced as a main religion. But I never actually liked it, because people who claim to be Muslim are not actually doing what they should do. But obviously, as an outsider, because my parents didn't really embrace the religion, I never knew the fundamentals of it. I just saw what people were doing, and I genuinely disapproved of it. But I was actually interested in this science bit of it, and I didn't actually go after religion before I studied about the theory of evolution for around 2 years. I was about 14, 15 years old.
And that led you to Islam?
Well, the thing is, that sort of pushed me through religion in general, because I couldn't come to conclusion that the theory of evolution was actually the right theory. I mean, there are some parts of it that are actually true, and they're actually sort of factual, but not all of it. So I was actually pushed to go and look for a right religion.
Well, thank you for your call, Mohammed in Gateshead, and thanks to Shaz in Oldham. Just a final thought from Jane in Cardiff, who converted to Islam at the age of 18, am I right?
Yes, 18.
Yeah. Just very quickly, because we've literally got 30 seconds left, Jane. Did you change the way you dress because of your conversion to Islam?
I did observe the headscarf, and it was a matter of, I just saw a beauty within it. It's not anyone forced me to do so. It's just, it made me feel, as funny as it may sound to some people, it made me feel empowered as a woman to really show my inner beauty rather than be judged from my outer beauty. And yeah, it's one of the most comforting things I've done on an outward appearance type of thing. But the most important thing is not about your outside modesty, because you can't obtain that until you have your inner modesty inside first.
Jane, many thanks for talking to us this morning. Thanks. That's Jane in Cardiff, and thanks to everyone who called in. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Remember, your call is broadcast live on weekdays from 9 a.m. on 5 Live.
On digital and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
bbc.co.uk/5 Live.